Right away I will teach you an awesome trick. The light on that winter day was coming from the right. In the corner I set up a highlight circle. Round that circle, a light gray circle. And again a darker one, and so on, till the background is covered with giant circles. With a soft 1-inch brush, we will blend the circles with almost no pressure on the brush. Yes, the palette stick, the secret weapon of the Dutch masters. Leonardo da Vinci used it, and even the ancient Egyptians used this great tool. In this scene I use it as a ruler. The trick is, let the metal of the brush slide along the wood of the stick, and there it is, a straight, nice outline. If you mix gray, never use black. In nature there is no black. Even in the darkest stone that you find in the river, there is always some light. And in the clearest white, there is always some dark. The old masters like Vermeer, Schelfhout and Koekoek always mixed their own grays. After setting up the tree trunks, we can load a small round brush with middle light gray and bring in some branches. Let the brush dance and do the work for you. With different shades of gray, I put up the background tree trunks. Beware of evenness in painting nature scenes. This is not your well-maintained, manicured, beautiful garden. This is wilderness. Evenness is your biggest enemy. Make it all uneven, like sizes of trees, colors, everything. I always tell my students, if you paint a tree, think like a tree. Then they have to laugh, but it helps. Make up little stories. Think about a long history of these beautiful living creatures. We don't have these trees anymore in Holland. Our muddy soil is not able to hold such big trees. They would fall down with the first winter storm. In the meantime, I started background foliage. Don't make too much work of it. It's just background. And the color I use is a middle tone gray. Andreas Schelfhout was the true master of the Dutch winter scenes. His trademark was the low horizon and a strong perspective. If you ever go to Europe, pay a visit to the Rijksmuseum in Amsterdam. You will find many of his paintings. When I was a student at the academy, I chose one of his paintings and sat down in admiration for more than an hour, sketching and watching. In Holland, the teachers always say, be humble and learn. The Dutch masters always started with a gray underpainting. The benefit is that you already explore the issues in your painting. And I like gray because it will improve your color balance. This is Barend Cornelis Koekoek, my favorite landscape painter. He was a nice, friendly guy and he loved to teach other painters. He founded his own painting school in the German city of Kleve. Now here is a nice little gossip of a few hundred years old. It is a well-known secret that famous painters, and I don't call names, ordered their students to make underpaintings or even the whole painting. The master came in, looked at it, improved it where necessary, signed it, and it was ready to sell. In the golden age, painting was big business in Holland. Here I used a fan brush, a crate brush for background foliage. I turn my hand again and again with different pressure and different tones of gray. If I talk about tones, it's no music of course, but I mean different light and dark grays. For this painting I use oil paint, which is nice and smooth. If you want to use acrylics, you have to use medium and retarder, as this is a wet in wet technique. Let's practice reflections, one of the most difficult topics in painting. With lots of medium and a 1-inch brush, I put up a thin layer of light gray. Then load the filbert brush with dark gray and bring in the dark reflections of the trees and foliage. If you use acrylic paint, use a bit of extra medium. In the middle, I load the brush with highlight and again I wiggle downwards with light strokes into the wet paint. Now, this is the hardest trick. With a soft, clean 1-inch brush, I fade in the wet paint with almost no pressure. And there it is, your reflections. And if you make a mistake, no worries, you always can start all over again. Now, here's your bravery test. We will make a nice ripple in the water. There's always some wind coming from Cameron Lake, causing a movement into the water. Load the brush with light gray and with light pressure push the bristles into the wet paint, and there it is, a nice ripple. We almost got rid of all the blank spaces. For the forest floor I use light gray with a little touch of burnt sienna. As you can see, we speed it up a little bit because I got only 30 minutes for the show, but you will get the idea anyway. Now watch my brush technique. I shake the brush. A natural brushstroke is very important. An expert will recognize each famous painter by his brushstroke. It's almost an autograph. About 500 years from now, your grandchildren will be so grateful, making millions with your masterpiece. As I always work from back to foreground, I start with a small round brush and a mix of dark gray and English red. Drawing little branches is not easy, but with your hand leaning on the stick and no pressure, it will succeed. Keep on practicing. Then I slowly will bring in the foliage with some dirty green. Remember, we don't want a fresh meadow green, but a so-called brownish rotten green. My students call this also baby poo. Okay, well, I call it dirty green. Already you will notice the strong effect of the cool background and the warm tones of the foreground. Again, I use the stick as a ruler, and yes, the canvas has a strange angle. We let it hang out a bit forward to avoid the reflections of the studio lights. And again, I use the stick as a ruler, but watch my technique. I don't do straight lines anymore. With a small round brush, I sketch the outlines of the trunks in front of the painting. The benefit is a nice, natural bark structure. Remember, in nature, everything is rough. I use dark gray and English red to paint the trunks, and already on the shadow side a bit more dark. On the right side, where the trunk catches the misty light, I bring in some titanium white with burnt sienna, just some rough strokes for the bark, which gives a nice natural effect. And here I'm doing the same on the left side. And with my hand leaning on the stick again, I'm gonna put up some nice thin branches. Remember what I said before, no pressure. And especially at the end of the stroke, no pressure. Keep it thin and small. We can paint some more little branches and give them some light too with light gray and burnt sienna. Don't hurry, take your time. And if you are in a big forest like this, take tons of photographs and start practicing trunks, trees, everything. If you look around, you will discover that nature is the greatest master of all. As you already noticed, I love history. It's incredible how heroes like George discovered all these facts without the help of satellites, computers or GPS. Just plain mathematics and lots of courage. Now back to the big tree. You saw already that I sketched the outlines and I want the base coming more forward and round. I use again dark gray with some English red, and on the right side, the light side that is, some light gray and burnt sienna. Now and then you see my hand twice in the dissolve. The cause of that is that we're speeding up the tape of the movie I made. I told you already, we have to do the show in 30 minutes. Thanks to the modern techniques, we can do this, otherwise the show would take 2 hours. And you would probably fall asleep in your coach. So stay with us. In the meantime, with a small filbert brush, I put up some light on the roundings and fade them in with almost no pressure. Then again with a smaller filbert brush, I bring in the bark. I do this with light gray and burnt sienna. When you put up the light, move slowly over to the left side and let the color fade away into the wet, dark paint. That is how you create a smooth crossover to the shadow side of the tree. It's time for the path that comes down to the tree. With a small filbert brush, we will paint this path, and I mix 3 tones of burnt sienna, light, middle and dark. Dark, that is for the shadow part. It's time to improvise. Be brave and try to shake that brush again. If it doesn't succeed, don't panic. Keep on practicing. Repeating is the magic word. To make the paint nice and smooth, use lots of medium. I always recommend odorless, medium and thinner. It's better for your health and your partner will appreciate and love you more. If you go over the lines of the big tree like I did, don't worry. We will repair this later when we put up the highlights. I always love a limited number of colors on my palette. The Dutch masters have only 15 pigments. Nowadays we can choose out of 2000 pigments, but we like to keep it small. For this show, believe it or not, I use only 8 colors. There it is again, my famous dirty green. With 2 colors on my fan brush, I wiggle and wiggle the bristles and set up the branches. First keep the tone light and slowly downwards, darker and darker. There's of course more shadow in the forest. Again, the advantage of the fan brush is fantastic. 2 colors on 1 brush. So easy. Now, there's a great number of canvases and brushes out there. Students always ask me, what can I buy the best? Well, buy always the best you can afford. If this is your hobby, treat yourself. Go to a good store where the owner can give you an excellent advice. Remember, cheap is most of the time disappointing. Not always, but most of the time. My advice is, go for quality. The lower part of the foliage is of course dark. There is shadow. Just add some more ultramarine and a touch of earth green to your mix. On that dark, I put up some lighter green to make the bush more come forwards. Also some more highlight will make it more 3D. Here I go, a little touch of highlight green. When we move over to the other side, we do the same trick. I start with dark and in between some lighter green. Watch my hand. I keep on doing the same technique. 2 colors on the fan brush and I keep on turning my wrist again and again. Here is some more highlight. It might be handy to practice this technique on a piece of oil paper. Very cheap and very handy. And here I show you a master trick of Baron Kuckuck. I mix some Tettero blue, which is very strong, with some light yellow and a bit of titanium white. With a fan brush, I put some reflections of wet green on the foliage. The effect is gorgeous. On that cold winter day in Cathedral Grove, it was so stone and stone cold that we ended up in bed with a nice flu. But as we say in Holland, art is born out of suffering and poverty. So here we are, creating a masterpiece. Now, if you think, why is that man talking so slow? I'm aware of my Dutch accent and I want you Canadians to understand me. But I'm working on it, I will improve. First, we will make the water wet. Isn't that a nice start? It seems like common sense. Use a light gray on lots of medium, bring it up with a big filbert brush. We will create the dark reflections with dark gray and dark green. Wiggle and shake the filbert brush and watch how I hold the brush. This will prevent that you scrape off the paint again. Upon that layer, a lighter green for bush reflections. As the highlight peeps through, we will add some highlight in the middle. And here comes the most important trick. Take the 1-inch brush and blend it in with soft horizontal strokes. Now remember, this is not a clear, wonderful lake, it is mud with all kinds of forest debris in it, so don't make it too clear. Here it is, the ripple in the water, caused by a wind blow from Cameron Lake and this time by my brush. Fade in the upper part and leave the low part alone. If you're brave enough, try another one. Keep on practicing, go ahead, and if it doesn't work, fade it out and start all over again. As you could see, I put off my tear-off palette in a cardboard box made by my lovely wife Els. She's an award-winning paper art designer and has many editorials in famous magazines. She is also filming this show, so where would I be without her? By the way, if you shut off the box and put it in the freezer, it will be good for at least a week. The life of acrylics is a bit shorter, a few days, but it helps saving you money. But first, ask permission to your partner. I don't want to be the cause of a divorce. And yes, the knife, it's a wonderful instrument. With some minor movements, you shake the light paint on the bark. Not too much. If you overdo it, you will spoil the effect. Difficult? Well, every new technique is not easy, but after good practicing, you will get the touch. In this scene, I will bring up the highlight, most important. This is the big secret of the Dutch masters. Catch the eye and hold the attention of the spectator. The great master of light effects was Rembrandt van Rijn. He was almost impressionistic. If you visit the Rijksmuseum in Amsterdam, take a good look at his techniques. Close by, you will see only blobs of paint. Walk away, take some distance, and suddenly you will discover a face or a group of faces like the Staalmeesters. Rembrandt painted more than 80 self-portraits. Was he so vain? No, I don't think so. He wanted to show his clients his portrait art, so he had always one portrait in stock. In those days, of course, there were no photographs. It was possible that clients bought, besides their own portrait, one of the creator himself. After the sale, Rembrandt made another promotion painting right away. That might be the cause of the great many self-portraits. His life was not easy. He lost his wives and also his beloved son Titus. In those days, and I talk about 1640, Amsterdam was not a healthy place. Sickness like cholera and typhus and also wars made life hard. Rembrandt passed away all alone at 63 years old, and that was in those days a respectable age. In the meantime, I painted with a small round brush more highlights. And watch my hand, it's leaning on the stick and brings my hand at ease. Again, with my hand leaning on the stick, I created some more branches. Remember the color? Dark gray with English red. On top of it some light with light gray and burnt sienna. On the other end, with the fan brush loaded with two colors of green, a dark one and a light one, I will bring in some more foliage. And it's important that this foliage is passing the big old tree. With some imagination, I almost can hear the wind rushing through the trees and the enchanted sounds of the birds. Isn't that nice? Down in the corner behind the big tree, I painted with a small round brush some weeds in a highlight green. It always gives a nice effect. From now on, you will look into the world with a different attitude. You will look with the attitude of a painter.